Flawedcast. Flawedcast! Get in the arena.
All right, welcome to another wonderful episode of Flawedcast here with my gracious host with very soft hands, Jason.
Well, thank you very much, Will. Appreciate that. And by the way, Willie, you are the executive producer of this episode.
Oh, cool.
So, great job on that.
Thank you. I appreciate the promotion. I've been trying really hard. As we talked about in almost every episode, hard work pays off. A couple things. Make sure you subscribe to us, Apple iTunes or iTunes Podcast, Google Play. We're on Spotify. Also, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Gab, Parler, Flawed Inc. Email us, flawedinc@gmail.com. We appreciate all the responses.
And aren't we going to run some sort of promotion here coming up where I have the most amount of friends and family that follow us on any social media is going to win some obscene amount of money?
Well, I don't know about obscene amount of money, but...
I was thinking somewhere between 15 and 20 mil. We'll know that a mil is 1/10 of a cent. So I feel pretty good about being able to afford 15 to 20 mil.
Mil? How about a mil? A mil?
A mil. So if you ever get gas, it says like $2.29 and it has that 9 up there, that 9/10 of a cent, that's 9 mil. So it's $2.29, 9 mil.
Look at that.
Okay? Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really $2.30. You know what I'm saying? They take the whole 99-cent thing to a whole nother level in gas.
Wow.
But anyway, that's a mil, and I make bets with my kids all the time and pay out in 10 to 20 mil at a time. They get very upset with it, but it works out well for me,
That's awesome. Well, boom. One thing we're going to talk about things on a spiritual level. This whole episode is dedicated to spirituality, core belief in God and Christ and the tenets of faith that he is described in the scriptures in the Bible. A distinction should probably be made, at least for me on my behalf, and I know this is something that you're probably going to agree on. We've talked numerous times. For me, there's a big distinction between knowing and loving Christ versus a lot of what we look at as the organized church or the organized religion. If you are not aware of what I mean,
that's another episode.
That's a whole nother episode. What I really want to talk about is something based, and I know Jason can relate. We have many discussions about this. Life is not easy, nor should it be, if we're being honest. But the reality of it is that life isn't easy, and there's a center or a core tenet for me, and that's a simple word. It's the word faith. It says in 1 Corinthians 13, now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Faith is such an important thing, and we talk about faith outside of the realm of spirituality or Christianity because it is something that impacts us like hope, like love. These are in, last couple episodes we've been talking about like natural laws, the laws that God has established from the foundation of time. And faith is one of those things. Jason was just saying, I don't have... Wait, how did you word that about? Because you worded it so eloquently.
Well, now you're asking me to remember. But ultimately, we were listening to a song, right? And faith is not believing in someone. It's believing someone. So when I say I've got faith in you, Bill, as my friend, that doesn't mean I believe in you. Okay? That means I believe you.
Yeah.
So when you say something, when you write something, when you promise something, I believe you. And like I said, that what people have to understand, that doesn't mean it turns out the way that I wanted it to be.
Right.
Right? But I believe that I believe you. I don't believe in you.
Right.
Of course, I believe in you as a friend, but that's not what
Right.
faith is.
Sure.
Faith is believing you.
Right.
It's something I've learned, and just recently, what faith really is. And I think it's different than what people think it is.
Sure. And, what's really interesting is kind of maybe a backstory, because I don't think we ever really got into this. You and I grew up together. Like, we've been friends since we're 5 years old, and then...
Yeah, it's been, 7 years now.
Right, yeah. And in that 7-year time span...
All right, so full disclosure, Bill and I have been friends for about 37 years, which is a pretty long time for 42-year-old people. That's a long friendship.
Right.
Now, in that friendship, we weren't always, when I say super close, we went periods of time where we didn't speak or really not because we're mad at each other. We just
it's life.
Yeah, life happened, and you did your thing. I did my thing. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to say that.
No, but I just, and I think it's one of those things that really, so we kind of reconnected probably like a year or so before our high school reunion, maybe a little longer than that, but it was really great because, when we had our high school reunion, you were the one person I really wanted, like, there was just something in my heart, like, I just got to reconnect with Jason. Like, I hope he's there.
I'm so glad I showed up because I almost didn't.
Yeah, you would have lost a lot.
My life would be totally different if I didn't show up that one evening.
It would,
Talk about listening.
Faith.
Talk about faith. Talk about listening to my heart.
Yeah,
following my heart that night because man, it would have been easy not to show up there.
So one thing, like, I really want to just discuss, and I guess kind of laying a foundation for this, is that in struggling, in waging wars with opponents that you've never encountered before, our faith is tried. A lot of the circles of spirituality, of Christianity that I've been around, it's been hinted, or it's been a notion that if you don't have strong faith all the time, there is a deficiency within you, that you lack somehow, that your belief in God, your belief in Christ isn't legitimate. It's a weight, because not only are you struggling with the notion of your faith personally in those dark recesses of our heart, in those corners of our mind where not only do we not really allow light to shine, but we never share with anybody. Those internal things. There's just those times where we struggle with faith, and then a lot of having that connotation or having those things thrown upon you, it makes that struggle even more hard. It's like you're a child of a lesser God or something like that. What I really want to do with our podcast and is to talk about these difficult things and then bring it to the forefront so that a discussion can be made, because I just know in the last 3 years of my life, like, we've discussed, and Jason has, like, it's just been, my faith has really been tried. And I can't say that I've always cut the mustard with where we're going with this episode. But so this episode is called Mustered Seed Faith. And mustard, I spelled it here, is a M-U-S-T-E-R-E-D, as in, like, you have to muster the faith. You have to contend to be able to obtain that faith, to not just to hold on, but to pull you through, to know that you're not losing your mind, that there is an outcome. And in the faith to know that life isn't always going to be handing you the shit out of the stick, and that eventually you're going to be able, God's going to help you. Eventually your friends, your family are going to be able to help you pull yourself up with that.
Why, though? Is having faith, this is what I want to come back to, what we talked about earlier. Just a few minutes ago, you asked me to say, I said it so eloquently. It's not because having faith in God is not believing he's going to come through. Read the scripture. He says he's going to come through. So believing God is the real key.
Exactly. And I think something that you said was so necessary, because you said, Bill may not come through like I had hoped or expected him to, but he came through. And that's the same way.
Yeah, and
with God.
And I'm going to totally throw you for a loop here.
Okay, do it.
And I know how you feel about this. I didn't think about it until we just started talking about this.
Okay.
But one of the, I think, greatest poems ever, spiritual-wise, that talks about faith without even using the word faith. Okay? Footprints in the sand. I'm just going to read real quick because I think it's phenomenal.
Do it, yeah.
One night a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene he noticed 2 sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to him and the other to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at the footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only 1 set of footprints. He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times in his life. This really bothered him, and he questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I've noticed that during the most troublesome times in my life, there was only 1 set of footprints. I don't understand when I needed you the most, you would leave me. The Lord replied, My son, my precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only 1 set of footprints, it was then that I carried you.
You bastard, you're going to make me cry.
I told you, man. I told you I had a surprise for you.
Well,
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
And think about what we're talking about with faith.
Right.
And that's where you gotta believe God. And that's what that whole thing sums up as far as I'm concerned, is that poem is a little story that says, question faith, right? He questioned the Lord. Sure. Why would you leave me? Why would you leave me? I believed you. Sure. I questioned my faith. I believed you. And there's only one set. And this is where you don't always get it the way you think you're going to get it. Sure. Right? Like when I said, Bill, I believe you. When you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. It might not be the way I thought you were going to do it, but you're going to do it, right? And that's where Lord here said, my precious child, I would never leave you. It's in those times that I carried you.
You just, I didn't plan to go there, but I'm glad you brought that up because there's something I really want to discuss, because in this journey that we're talking about with faith, with our life, and once again, the perceived notion of what faith is, how that looks. You just mentioned that this is a gentleman, and if we're being honest with ourselves, like really, really honest, like brutally honest with ourselves, there's been times where, on our life, whether you're an atheist, whether you're agnostic, Muslim, Jewish, whatever, anybody, I refuse to believe that there isn't a person that hasn't said, why God?
Even if it's only internally. That's still questionable. So
here's the thing. It is okay to question faith. And I'm going to tell you two different things and I know a lot of, listen, I don't mean to be disrespectful to people in circles of Christian faith, but I think we really need to take a real long, hard look at what our, who we worship, who we serve, what they said, or excuse me, what he said. Christ questioned the Father, the Almighty himself. And he was in the Garden of Gethsemane the night before the crucifixion. He said, God, if it's your will, let this cup pass. But the faith he had said, not your will, my will be done. And then when he is on that cross, there are 7 final sayings of Christ while he was being crucified. And one of those sayings is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I don't know a person, no matter what their belief set is, that hasn't been able to identify, that hasn't asked the same questions. And if I'm being honest, like the last season of my life here, those are things I probably ask on a daily basis. But I want to challenge it. I want to bring something to the forefront of people. Like, it's okay to ask. Like, God's not pissed at you. God's not mad at you. He doesn't think, he's not waiting to smote you. That's not how it works, And
I'm just going to tie something else real quick. I don't mean to go off the subject. We'll bring it right back. But we've talked about this several times before about not being perfect, right?
Wait,
we're not perfect.
Being flawed?
Yeah, being flawed. Flawedcast. That's why Jesus died on the cross. Jesus died on the cross is, to me, is as American as it gets. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just simply saying American flag and what people died for that flag to give us rights and freedoms. That's what Jesus did spiritually. He gave us freedom to be flawed. And not intentionally. I don't mean you can go be a bad person and then say, okay, I'm done being bad now. But when we truly make mistakes or we truly question God, like Bill said, he's not out to get us. He's not waiting for us to F up and then strike us down. That's not how. So anyway, I just want to tell you,
that's
it's
great.
okay. It's okay.
Well, I would say more than okay. I would be daring enough to say it's necessary.
Okay.
This is the reason why. Because we aren't robots. We aren't some artificial intelligence that have been programmed to perform a function.
We have emotions.
We have emotions, we have wisdom, we have logic, we have life experiences that we can draw from that lead us to believe certain things, right? And it's okay. Like, we were designed that way. Like, if, like using the computer to record these episodes, like the program that I'm using was purposely designed to be able to create audio, edit it, and then put it out. That's what its function, its singular solitary function is. That you and I as humans, we weren't created with that single solitary function.
We work that same way, and that's why they, by the way, cannot reproduce a human brain in a computer. They can try, but you can't do it.
Well, that's another episode, I'm sure. The larger point is that if you are struggling with your faith, that's fine, because what that tells me is you've not given up. You're still
searching, learning.
One of the important things we need to realize that I'm going to share some personal things this episode. I really want to be transparent. I want to be authentic, and these are things that we discuss. These are things that we talk about. But if you are listening, I have to assume that there's something within Jason and I that you gravitate towards, that you can identify with, that you appreciate. So I'm going to just be as open as I can about things, at least in the context of what the time we have and the platform here. There's 2 books outside of the Bible that changed my life. First one is a book called Enjoying God by a gentleman named Stephen S.J. Hill. Awesome. The other one is The Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning. Just love this quote. Like, to me, I think of this all the time, and it says, sin and forgiveness and falling and getting back up and losing the pearl of great price in the couch cushions, but then finding it again and again and again. These are the stumbling blocks to becoming real. The only script that really is worth following in this world and the one coming. The fact we have this great treasure, we have this pearl, this thing of great value, and we lose it. And we find it in the couch cushions, and we lose it again. And then we lose it again and again. That is how we become real. I'm going to read a couple scriptures, and I really want to get into the context, because I know, Jason, you have a lot to say about this. And whenever you have conversations, you're always like, well, you're the ordained guy, but that isn't it. I get as much spiritually from you as you, probably more than you would ever get from me. So I'm going to read a couple scriptures, and we really want to get into the meat and potatoes of this. Is that, and this is where the whole mustered, like mustering that faith, is Matthew 17:20. It says, he, being Jesus, replied, you have so little faith. Today I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here, be there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And, the interesting thing is a mustard seed is the smallest seed there is. Jesus was speaking not only metaphorically, but he was speaking actually literally. You have just a little nugget, but if you're at your wit's end, you're at the end of that rope, and you just have that little bit of faith, the power within that little bit of faith that you're mustering up, you can say to a mountain, be moved. Now, I think it's important to define faith, and we're going to talk about this here. Just going to, once again, the scriptures. Hebrews 11:1, I love this scripture. It says, faith is confidence in what we hope for and the assurance about what we do not see. That's the new NIV version. The NLT says, faith knows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. The reality of things hoped for. Meaning, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I am hoping that my reality is there is no empirical evidence that anything, that this situation that I'm facing right now is going to ever end, ever be any better, that I'm going to be whole, that I'm not going to be depressed, I'm not going to be lonely, I'm not going to be sad, I'm not going to, and I'm going to just be really, really transparent, just wishing that I weren't even here. Not necessarily dealing with thoughts of suicide and things like that, but just saying it would be so much easier if I just weren't alive. And I want to be able to really discuss these things, because I don't know a person that I'm really, really close with that I've not had a conversation with that hasn't been able to say, yeah, I understand, I can relate, I can assimilate to what you're saying. But I think the notion of people being belittled, the notion of people feeling lesser or feeling discounted because they struggle with faith, with something that is at the core a condition of our humanity, that people are made to feel discounted or lesser, that grieves my heart, and it's wrong.
Well, as it ties to faith, Bill, I think, we were talking before this episode, recording this episode, and you were talking about how you feel faith it's not black or white. Right? You used to think it was black and white, but now it's not black and white, it's gray area. And when we read this, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. That's the gray area, if you will. Right?
Well, okay, so just to expand a little bit of what he's saying, back in the day, I used to say when I was a politician, which basically means like my full-time occupation was traveling and preaching. And I was really dogmatic. I was involved in a particular denomination that was very much stuck in past, stuck in tradition, stuck in dogma, which the older I get, the more I realize that when you read the scriptures and when you actually understand who Christ was and what he did, the two never intersect. So when I say I was a politician, that's what I mean. I was stuck in that dogmatic, religious, that structured mindset. So everything was black and white. Well, you're either this or you're either that. And that was like programming. That's what I was taught. The older I get, the more I realize that faith doesn't live in a neighborhood of black or white. And I'm not talking racial, those areas in the recesses of our heart, those dark areas of those recesses in our heart. And then there's those places where light isn't allowed access, and then there's areas where light is allowed access. I now realize that Faith's neighborhood is gray. Faith lives in to quote a lyric from a friend of mine, Faith is a shade of gray or something in between. And that's where I'm at. And I think if we're being honest, and I think maybe God designed it that way. Because if we had certainty for everything, then there would be no need for faith. It's kind of like if you're perfect, right? So the standard to get into heaven is perfection. The example of perfection on earth was Christ. Christ came, died on the cross for our sins so that perfection could be attained through his sacrifice. It's like believing that we're already perfect. Therefore, you're negating the work of the cross, and essentially you're spitting in Christ's face. You're elevating yourself above him, saying that his sacrificial act is meaningless because you can obtain it on yourself, and that's not true. The same exact thing was struck when you are looking at faith, whether you are in a place, in a season in your life where faith comes effortlessly, or you're in a place in your life where you don't even know what that means.
That's well said. That's very well said.
But I want, and it takes a while. And it takes some hindsight, and it takes some 2020. And last, 3 or 4 episodes, I've been talking about a difficult season of my life. Is, I kind of sort of recently divorced, and that is something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah. And it's debilitating. It's demoralizing. It is depressing. It is lonely. You see sides of people that you never knew were there. You see sides of yourself that you never knew were there.
And that's where the question starts to come in.
Well, exactly. And the one thing I said to myself the night that my ex-wife left is no matter what, I am going to err on the side of love. And I am going to put myself in a position that no matter what, when I look at myself every day in the mirror, when I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm shaving, whatever, that I can look at myself and say, you did the best you could. And that no matter what anyone else says, they're not going to lord that over you. Now, I've struggled with my faith. You and I've lost count how many times that you read the Footprints poem to me. And every time you do, just like I am right now, I got these big alligator tears. And because it speaks, I think, precisely to the point. It's okay that guy, in retrospect, in hindsight, having the ability to actually have God right there with him and say, God, this hurt. I was wounded.
Right. How can you not be there?
Right.
You promised. You said.
Right.
You would be. You said it, right? Remember what faith is.
Right.
Faith is believing God. Not just believing in God, but believing God.
Right.
And he said, I believed you, and you weren't there. Why?
Well,
that's real. And that's where I think, Bill, you were saying earlier is,
sure.
We all hit times in our life, different for everyone, and multiple times in your life, where, why? Why? You told me that if I this and I that you would this and you would that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the hard part sometimes, what we don't understand, and this is why it's okay to ask, is what we think we deserve or should have, the way that we want it. It doesn't come out that way. Many, many, many times, every time that I've questioned like that, eventually I've looked back and said, oh, now I know why this happened. I didn't know why this happened before. I was upset that it happened. It seemed unfair.
It hurt.
Yeah. You let me down. Why'd you let me down? Why didn't you follow through with what you said? Well, you did. And it took some time for that to play out. And plays out in God's time, not in our time. And that's that selfish piece, right? It's not about us.
There's an old band. They're called Down Here. The lead singer in that band has done a lot of the vocals for the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. Just came out, which was a piece of garbage. The acting was fantastic. The acting was fantastic. It wasn't about Queen there. But so they have a lyric in one of their songs called Great Am I, but the lyric says, because I don't hold the whole horizon in my view. I think, let that sink in. I don't hold the whole horizon in my view. I can't see the beginning from the end. I only have the peripheral of where I'm at. That's my only view. And then I could look back on the past. Not being able to forecast the future is The thing of it is that faith lies in the future, right? Because we don't need faith for what we already have. Things hoped for with the evidence of things not seen. It's by design, because if we knew everything, there would be no struggle, there would be no learning, there would be no process, there would be no mental, maybe physical, spiritual evolution in that regard. And I'm not talking a Darwinian kind of a thing. When I mean spiritual evolution is like growing from, being a spiritually kind of an infant to, maturing in that process.
For this episode, the message is faith and having faith, and it's okay to question faith. And it takes time to understand why. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just saying, okay, God, why? And then God says, this is why. Sometimes it takes a minute. It reveals itself in God's time, not in ours. And, the important thing to know is that God is there and will be there. And faith is something you have to work on because, and something you have to question. That's what we're saying. You just can't say, okay, I have faith. I believe everything that God tells me. And when shit gets hard, it's not even bother me. It won't even faze me.
Right.
Well, and when I say hard, I mean things that rock your faith are not the $200 speeding ticket. Okay. Things that rock your faith are a loved one passes from a horrible disease or tragedy. Things that rock your faith are a divorce. Things that rock your faith are major life-changing events. And usually not the positive ones. You don't question the positive ones. We don't question that.
Right.
I knew it. You got the big raise. I knew that if I just believed it would happen. Those are easy, right? It's the ones we question are the hard ones. They're the tragedy. They're the bad things that happen to us. Because how could God let something bad happen to us or people that we love that are good people when, He's promised us all these things? Well, the answer to that, no one has them. God has them. And they will be revealed, but in God's time. And that can be hard. It can be really challenging. It
can be impossible. There's another scripture that says the rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. We're all going to go through that. A storm may not be the same storm. In many regards, everyone's storm, everyone's journey is different. What I want people to take away from this is it's okay to question your faith.
And there is a why. God has a why. Doesn't mean it's fair. We've talked about this before.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's fair. It doesn't mean it's fun. It doesn't mean any of that. There's a reason.
It's okay to struggle. I really just want to be able to tell people it's okay. That the struggle doesn't define you. I believe the struggle, once prevailed, will embolden you and it will strengthen. At least that's what I'm using my faith as you listen to this to believe that for the outcome of my life.
Just, again, full transparency. I've been through a divorce and I sit on the side here and tell Bill constantly. And this is where Bill has to have faith in me and believe me that it's bad and it stays bad for a while, but it gets better. And there is another side to it when it comes to divorce, for instance. It could be anything that you happen to go through. This is just what we're talking about here right now. You have to believe that it gets better. And again, it's not in your time, it's in his time. It is okay. What you need to do is you need to find people, God, and lean on them and ask questions. And that's why it's okay to ask, because you're searching for answers.
Sure.
And that's okay.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things that we can do to deter that healing process is to masquerade as if we're okay. That, we're not injured, that we're not flawed, that we aren't faltering from whatever life throws at you. I think posturing, most people, especially if you are in community, if you have a close relationship with them, will be able to say, like, man, you're I know, despite what you say, I know you're not right. I know you're not good. And it's okay to not be okay. And the whole idea of Flawedcast, flawed, was during this period. I was listening to a song by Dashboard Confessional, Vindicated. It just resonated with me. And it's hard to come to that place where, I'm flawed. Doesn't mean I will be flawed. It doesn't mean when I'm always be flawed. It doesn't mean when I'm struggling with today is what I will be struggling with tomorrow.
Well, that's the whole thing. When you think about it, how we grow, how we learn, how we become stronger is through experience, is through mistakes, is through questioning. We don't just get born with it. Now, our kids think that they know everything. Just ask my son. He'll tell you. He has all the answers.
Right.
And so did I when I was
Right.
13, 12 years old.
Sure.
The older I got is when I started to realize that I don't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do I not have all the answers, I'm wrong a lot more than I'm right. And that's okay. The reason that people have all the answers is because they're scared to be wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to ask a question. It's okay to wonder. If you don't do those things, that's what you should be worried about. If you're not
Right.
doing those things is where you should be worried.
Well, in hardship, trials, tribulations, that, whenever we grab a cigar, we always say cigars are the great equalizer.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to tell a story real quick.
Sure.
So I'm traveling. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona at this really cool cigar bar. Meet this guy there who works for a cigar company, and I buy a couple of his cigars, and me and my buddy are smoking them, and I'm talking to him, and he says to me, he goes, the cigar is a great equalizer. And I'm like, well, what do you mean a great equalizer? He said, well, he goes, look around this room. We have everybody in this room from doctors to construction workers and all sorts of whatever. No one's better than anyone.
Right.
Everyone's having conversation. Everyone's having a good time. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's here for the same thing. To relax, have a cigar, be on the same level.
Right.
Anyway, that's the story of the great equalizer.
Sure, no, and that's what I mean by hard trials and tribulations as hardship. That is even a more of an equalizer in the sense is that I don't care how hard you hit, life's going to knock you to your knees and keep it there permanently if it let you. To quote Saint Stallone, in Rocky Balboa.
Life's not all sunshine and rainbows.
That's right. And I know this is going to come across harsh. And really, it's not my intention. But, we come to these places to worship. And instead of allowing ourselves to be open and vulnerable, and when we do that, we are literally allowing God to come into our heart to begin to heal those places, because it's a matter of allowing entrance. During this last 3 years, this process, you've been one of the greatest sources of strength and wisdom and just like a shoulder to cry on for me that I can never repay back. And I'm so thankful. But unless I would ask you, or unless I would have been open, and unless I would have said, hey man, I'm struggling, or the day of my divorce I said, I need you to be there with me. And you were. I'll be honest with you, it was hard for me to send that text.
Sure.
Because once again, I'm a man, I can do this, blah, 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 but I can't. And that's what I realized. And that's what I mean by the great equalizers, because we go to these places and we hear these, pep talks, we hear these motivational speeches. And the reality of it is life is not that way. And if you have lived 10, 15 years, maybe not even past high school, you understand shit gets real quick. What you learn in high school seldomly ever prepares you for what you're going to encounter in the real life, And I think we're talking about the notion of faith. It is one of the strongest anchors we have to be able to ground us. It's one of those, it's a rope that we can hold on to when we're in the storm. And it's also a lifeline that people will extend, the right people, by the way. You don't want to let charlatans and hangers on and users usurp your emotional bandwidth, because quite frankly, when you're really going through stuff, you just don't have a lot. But the right people will extend to you that lifeline, and it's essential to be able to grab on, and it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Well, and that's the thing, all of our, we're talking about getting in the arena all the time. And it all comes down to, you can't get into the arena until you become one with yourself, until you understand where you're at and what's going on. And we always talk about every episode. And that's it. Michael Jackson, man in the mirror, whatever. But, we have to look at ourselves. We have to be honest in where we're at. And I don't know that communities of faith, especially what I've been involved with, foster that ability or the sense of it's okay to say, I am really struggling. I'm really having a difficult time, and I need help because I don't know what I'm going to do. And people are depressed, and people are sad and lonely. And, if you look at the statistics, our society is only increasing in that regard. Technology, cell phones, commerce and things being done a lot online is really isolating people. And if you look at the statistics, it's just the dynamics just changed, and no man is an island. The idea of a self-made man is a fallacy. It's a farce. I'm sorry, but no one gets out of life alive, and nobody gets through it without companionship. But if I'm I know you and I know this isn't like a one-way relationship, because I know there's been many times you talked to me like, man, I don't know what else I can take on right now, and just different things, and I'm going to share them because they're in confidence, but it's a two-way street.
Well, I'll share this because I love where we're going with this. When I was young, my parents divorced when I was young, and I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and all this stuff hit me at once. My parents divorced. My sister got married and moved to London. My brother went away to college. Literally inside of 18 months, my world of 12 years was gone. And I'm 13 years old. And that took a huge toll. I mean, on top of that, one of my best friends' father passed away, right, who I was extremely close to. He was my little league coach.
Right.
He was a confidant, spent a lot of time at their house, and he was like a second father to me.
Mr. Roberts.
Yeah. All that happened in a very small window. Actually, the death happened after all the other stuff. It was like, man, I took so many blows, and a lot of things went south in my life. I was what you would consider a bad kid by a long shot. I mean, I was a bad kid. The things I did were, I didn't hurt people, but man, I did dumb things. I went up and down this emotional roller coaster for my entire high school, junior high and high school career. And finally, my senior year in high school, I broke down to the point where I called my mom at work and said, I need to talk to someone. I need help.
Yeah.
It took me 5-6 years,
right,
to finally say, I need help. And what help was for me, this was great. This is the part that I couldn't believe and changed my life. What help was for me was going into this office twice a week and for an hour talking to someone who had no opinion, listened well, and asked a lot of questions. And I talked for 2 hours a week for 6 weeks. Never questioned me, never did anything but give me a phone number and say, if you need to talk before we meet next, call me here. What I learned was it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to talk about things. That is what makes you stronger. You don't get stronger by packing shit on your back and saying, I can do this on my own. You don't get stronger that way. You get worse that way.
Sure.
You get meaner or more upset or more depressed or whatever direction it's taken you, you get more of that. Because I did it for 5 years, 6 years. Literally since then, I've found people, and we talked about in episodes before about my core and things like that. I have a core of people, and I can lean on and talk to any of those people.
Right.
I am very transparent and open with those people. They know everything that's going on in my life. I have no secrets in my life.
Right.
I don't believe in them. I don't care what you know about me. I'll tell you everything about how much I make. I'll tell you all those things. I don't care. I don't have anything. I sleep so good at night.
Right.
I'm not, it doesn't mean I'm perfect. It doesn't mean I don't get upset.
Sure.
It doesn't mean I don't get depressed. And it doesn't mean I don't question faith, because damn it, I do.
Right.
I do, like everyone else. But
right.
Being able, as you said, Bill, and this is my whole point with what I'm saying, being able to say, man, I need to talk. Something is not okay right now.
Sure.
And the sooner you can do that when there's a situation, the better. Mm-hmm. The more you let it eat you up and build it up in you, the more dangerous that becomes.
I can't emphasize enough. And if you were listening and you're struggling, please get help.
Email us, seriously. Whatever we can do.
Absolutely. And so, within the struggle, so within the last 3 years of my life, just encapsulate, I was being groomed to be in a pastorate position. My ex-wife and I at a church. We were accused of things that weren't true. The pastor, I'm not going to say his name, has a past of doing things like this when he feels that he's being threatened, that he's inadequacies, and I hope he's being better. But then literally after all that happened, a week later I had a kidney transplant. I almost died. I had to have 2 different surgeries. I almost died each time. Then 6 months later, my wife left, my ex-wife. I don't speak to all but one of my blood relatives anymore because of the divorce, and
or they don't speak to you.
Or they don't speak to me, and that sucks. I like it. It sucks is like that's not even like a real accurate description. That's an understatement. But what I want to emphasize is that my ex-wife left on a Sunday. On that Wednesday, God put an awesome therapist in my life. Dr. Tim's his name. He has helped me. You have helped me. My other friends have helped me. Please get help.
Yeah, you've got to be the one to let folks know. People don't know, like I said earlier.
Where no one's a mind reader.
That's right. But you let folks know and let the right people know. Right. If you're not sure who those right people are, and I'm not kidding when I say this, shoot us an email. What's our email, Bill?
Flawedinc, CLE@gmail.com.
It's FLAWEDINKCLE@gmail.com. I'm serious about this. Right. I want to make sure you reach out to someone. This life thing's tough. Right. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of bad. There's a lot of in between. And the faith piece is really important. And it's easy to lose faith. It's easy to question faith. Understand that that's okay. Yeah. Don't think that all hope is gone. Right. It's not.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's the exact opposite. And it's okay. Like Jason said, for those who are going to listen to this that may be in the community of faith that know, there was someone that recently took his own life. And he was a young kid. And I've not shared this with anybody there other than the 2 or 3 people that are like you that are in my circle. That hit me in a really, really profound way because he was young, and had he just held on another 5 minutes. Right. What we're talking about is like, this is important stuff. I mean, the historical stuff, the political stuff is really important, but getting help, being who you were created to be, that is at the core of what this is about. And it's okay if you're struggling with your faith. That's okay. If you're struggling in your life, that's okay. Get the help, because hopefully, and I'm speaking to myself. Hopefully, I can listen to this in the future, looking in retrospect on this, that I'm okay, and I am okay, but I hurt, and I don't understand why things have happened. Married for 14 years, who I thought was my best friend. I thought I did a great marriage. I mean, but
yeah. Well, let me throw this out as well. For those of you that don't feel like you're going through anything, that feel good, that are in a good spot right now, and your faith is strong. Do you know someone who, or first of all, are you the kind of person that can be open and be there for someone, for someone to lean on, for someone to talk to, for someone to get perspective from someone who would be non-judgmental, but just be supportive? I ask you to be that person. It's very rewarding if you know someone who, even if they're not willing to open up to you, is there a direction you can point them in towards someone or something that they can open up to, they can be helped? There's a lot that, seriously, as Bill's saying, depression and
isolation too. That's something that you're not alone.
For sure. So faith, man, it's, again, the big thing is faith's important. Understanding what faith is very important. And, I do want to toss off Beautiful Eulogy and throw a shout out to them, because there are a couple great songs that I'd recommend that you listen to. And the ones that really come out to me are on the Beautiful Eulogy Worthy album. If you haven't listened to Beautiful Eulogy, definitely do.
Having faith, being a Christian, being a believer, whatever you want to label yourself, it doesn't mean everything is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that blindly go with whatever you're told. It means that, you're signing up for a life of hardship, because you're already in a life of hardship. You just, like that Footprints poem, you just have somebody that's going to walk by your side.
There's good and bad. Try to keep that perspective. When you're going through something, keep in mind there's a lot of good times you've had in your life. I promise you there are. Sometimes they're hard to see when you're depressed and you're upset. And this is why it's important. The reason that things happen will be revealed in God's time, but there is a reason, and they work out the way they're supposed to.
I just want to say, in all seriousness, if you are struggling with suicide, just talk to somebody. Let's just hopefully be an agent of change in that regard.
The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So this is available 24/7, 365. 1-800-273 8255. Again, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. If you know someone or you are to the point where you really need to talk to someone because you're contemplating suicide at all, please reach out to that number. Someone's there to talk to you.
If you are struggling with your faith and you feel like you're involved in a community that is more belittling than they are encouraging, it's okay if, I don't want to say look outside of that, but look for those who are going to love and foster you, and they may not have necessarily be inside that realm of faith, or that community of faith. There are resources, and it's sometimes just hard knowing where to look, but I would just tell you the first thing to look for is the scriptures.
God will be there for you. And know that you're loved.
Yeah. And once again, email us, flawedcast@gmail.com. We'll do what we can, see what we can do. But want to thank you guys again for listening. Hope this helped. I really sincerely do. We appreciate the support. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify,
everywhere.
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram,
Gab, Parler, Twitter, Flawedy. So appreciate the support. And get in the arena.
Until next time.
All right.